Bryce Harper.
Big news.
Big news, because we knew his elbow wasn't in good shape. That was known. But we didn't know how bad and what the surgery, or maybe not surgery, would look like. But on the 23rd of November, so about a week ago, Bryce Harper underwent Tommy John surgery on his ulnar collateral ligament in his right arm and will be out for a while. So big news there, obviously, for the remainder of the year after he hurt it. For the majority of the year last year, he was just DHing because of this injury. Then he was out for a while with the broken hand, then came back and wasn't great until the playoffs, where honestly the Phillies aren't in the World Series without Bryce Harper. So now he's getting this surgery. Prognosis isn't great here. Obviously, for a pitcher, it's basically a full year you're out. Bryce Harper, he's a DH. We saw this happen recently with Shohei Ohtani in the last few years, that he ends up getting Tommy John surgery but is still able to DH. So when will Bryce Harper be able to DH? Well, seemingly around the All-Star break is what the Phillies themselves tweeted out. That the prognosis is return to DH around the All-Star break and a possible return to right field towards the end of the season. But big news here, and I don't want to say most importantly, but sadly, this means Bryce Harper will not be playing in the World Baseball Classic in March.
That is sad. But you got to think of the long-term effects here, right? Because if you have that elbow issue and you don't take care of it now, this could linger for the remainder of your career. Now, as you mentioned, for a pitcher, it's a lot more serious. It can be anywhere from 1 to 2 years for them to get back to their full potential on the mound. But as you mentioned, we just saw this with Shohei Ohtani back in 2018 when he got Tommy John, and he was back within 7 months DHing while he was still rehabbing his arm to pitch, which is kind of right in the middle of the two kind of time windows that we have of Bryce Harper would be 8 months if it's by the All-Star break, 6 months if it's early May, and Ohtani was 7 months. So it's kind of right. It feels right, that 6 to 8 months until you get Bryce Harper back DHing. So it's not as bad, and it's going to be better for him in the long run, knowing that he's not going to have a lingering issue, someone who's an MVP caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, you also can't, I don't think it's realistic for Bryce Harper to DH for the rest of his career. This isn't, if you have a tear in your UCL as bad as he apparently had, needing to get Tommy John, there's no possible way you could go out there and throw in right field. No. I mean, this was a necessity. There's no way around it. It sucks for the Phillies, who were great and will be good next year, and will be missing Bryce Harper for much of the year. So this is a big blow to the Phillies. Unfortunate for Harper, obviously one of the biggest stars in the game, MVP the year before last, and then obviously became a lifelong hero in Philly for what he did in the playoffs. And I think Joe Davis said it best after his homer. It was the swing of his life against the Padres. It was awesome. But the Phillies there's some concerns there now, some big ones.
Yeah, not only with Bryce Harper not there, but they have a lot of holes to fill. They are losing 10 arms potentially. They have 10 arms that are free agents, which is kind of a big deal, considering that wasn't necessarily their strong point.
That was their weakness
in the postseason. But now you don't have Bryce Harper. You've talked about Trey Turner. They should push hard to get him over there, which could kind of make sense. He could fill the slot, not only shortstop, but he also can play outfield. So that could be a potential idea. But I don't know, who should the Phillies go after hard now in free agency? Now that you don't have Harper, you have 10 arms that are free agents. You need some beef in that lineup, and obviously in the rotation and bullpen.
I think the answer is still Trey Turner. When I look at the Phillies, sans Bryce Harper, their offense is still elite, and you're going to get him back hopefully around the All-Star break. So I don't have any immediate offensive concerns with the Phillies because of this. I think the glaring issue for them and the perfect fit, as I've been saying for months now, half a year it feels like, is get Trey Turner. He's the perfect fit. He wants to come back east. He wants to play with Bryce Harper, which might take a little longer than he thought if he ends up on the Phillies. But fix that middle infield hole that you have. And in the meantime, he's versatile. So you know what? Like, I don't think Trey Turner wants to play outfield. I think he wants to play shortstop. But, you know, you have here your outfield currently would be Brandon Marsh in center, Schwarber in left, Castellanos in right. I think it just gives you more flexibility. So go get Trey Turner, make him your middle infielder, and then if need be on a day or two, put him out in center field where he's played plenty before. Move Brandon Marsh or give somebody a day. So I don't look at this Bryce Harper news and say, oh my God, the Phillies need to go get an outfielder. It has to happen. I don't. I think there two issues that remain the same are get a middle infielder and do multiple things with the pitching. I think having the studs at the top of the rotation that they do, great. I think they need another back into the rotation starter, so not one of the elite guys on the market. I'm not expecting them to go get a Jacob deGrom or Justin. I don't see that happening, but there's plenty of guys out there to go get and to bolster the back end of your rotation. But they need 5 guys in the bullpen. They desperately, as you mentioned,
10 arms.
10 arms
that are free agents
that are leaving. And the arms were the weakness of this team. The bullpen was the big glaring weakness. You had guys that were able to come in and get big outs. Obviously, the David Robertson pickup was big for them, but he's one of the arms out.
Syndergaard also.
Syndergaard out was a guy that could provide back into the rotation help or bullpen help. Eflin was a guy that we saw them turn to multiple times in the playoffs. Alvarado is a guy that can get outs for them, but they desperately need bullpen help. And it's not just an arm or two. I'm not looking for them to go get a stud closer, which they need, by the way. I'm looking for them to go go get 5 bullpen arms, just guys that can get outs that you trust at the back end of their bullpen. That's what they need. Go get Trey Turner, go get bullpen arms, and you will be back in the playoffs, no doubt.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of attack on is, okay, yeah, you're not going to have your MVP guy, Bryce Harper, for the first half of the season, most likely. Not the end of the world. Special things happen when you lose a top player. Guys come together. They figure out ways to get it done. The biggest issue is pitching. You're not going to win games, especially late in games, if you don't have the right bullpen. And that should be the biggest concern of how they get back to the postseason, is rounding out their entire pitching.
Yep. Absolutely. So Bryce Harper out for a bit. It will be a tough blow for the Phillies. I believe they can ride the ship and will be just fine once he comes back. Thanks for watching. If you love Flippin Bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.